Welcome to the weekly session of Current Affairs at Narayana IS Academy. So today, as part of this session, we will cover all the major news items of the entire week. The first news is related to H-1B visa. Since Donald Trump has become or has got elected as the President of United States of America, the discussions and debate are going on around this H-1B visa. Is Trump going to put restrictions on H-1B visa? Because many Indians, they want to get this visa. They try to go to USA, work there. And if Donald Trump puts some restrictions on it, it will not be good for such Indians. But the point is, here C. Rajamohan is arguing that Indian government should not think just about this H-1B visa. Rather, there could be many other challenges and many other things where we need to focus on more. But right now, because the article is related to H-1B visa, we'll first try to understand what is this visa specifically. The visa, we all know. If you want to go to any other country, you want to visit that country, you want to stay there for some time, you would require the permission of that government. And for that, you apply for visa. Now, the visa could be of different categories. One of the category is H-1B visa, which is given by US government. Now, under this category, what they do is they allow some people from other countries to work in USA, but these are very special people. We call them people with specialty occupations. So, specialty occupations could be a person working in finance, a person working in technology, a person who is highly qualified and highly technically skilled. Let's say an engineer who is highly skilled and he wants to go from India to US and work there. In that case, he will apply for H-1B visa. Now, such visa, we might think that for Indians it is important. Certainly, the person who is in India, who is highly skilled and he wants to earn money, he wants to get good fame, he wants to go to USA, that's fine. That's good for that person. But it is good for US economy also. Because US economy, if it wants to sustain, if it wants to compete with other economies like Chinese economy, it has to ensure that in the field of technology, finance, etc., it should be continuously competing, or advancements should continue to go on. And for those advancements, you need people, you need employees who are highly skilled and highly qualified. So when people around the world, they reach out to USA using this H-1B visa, it is also helpful for US economy. Now, if we look at the technical aspects related to this H-1B visa, so every year around 85,000 visas, H-1B visas are given. Now, there are some exceptions too. For example, a person who wants to go ahead with higher education in USA or wants to work in non-profit research organizations. In that case, this would not be applicable. This is an exception. But most of the times we see this 85,000 number, and this is not for Indians. I'm talking about any person around the world who wants to work there. So total people 85,000, and this will be decided through a lottery system. So in case you get it through lottery, then luck by chance you will get it. Now such a visa will be there for total 3 years. Its validity is of 3 years, and you can get this validity extended for next 3 years. So total 6 years. After that, it will not get extended. That's the maximum period. But a person can apply for such H-1B visa as many times as he or she wants to. So there is no lifetime limit on this H-1B visa application as such. And most importantly, when you get this visa, you're just going there and staying. Let's say you have taken it for 3 years only. You are going to stay in USA, work there for 3 years. Then there is a possibility that you want to stay more, so you can apply for green card. Now, green card is like permanent residency. Permanent residency means US government is allowing you to stay in USA for permanent. So let's say this H-1B visa is allowing you for only 3 years or maximum 6 years. If you get green card, you can stay there permanently. You can work in USA for as long as you want to. But you are not the citizen of USA. After getting green card, you can again stay there, and then after completing the entire criteria, you can apply for the citizenship of USA. So this is how you can compare all these things. Now, apart from H-1B visa, there are some other categories of visas. For example, in USA, there is O visa. So, foreign nationals with extraordinary abilities in science, arts, education, business, athletes, they can apply for O visa. Similarly, there is H-2A visa for agriculture workers, H-2B visa for temporary workers performing other services like labor services, B2 visa for tourism, vacation or pleasure activities. So let's say you are visiting USA just for the sake of tourism. In that case, you will apply B2 visa. And at last, V visa, non-immigrant visa for spouse and children. So if you have gone to USA, now your spouse wants to come there, she will be applying for V visa. So you should have a brief idea about such visa categories. Okay, this is the first topic. Now the second topic is Singapore to help India's semiconductor industry. See, it's been almost last 3-4 years. We see such an article which focuses on semiconductors. And in recent times, we are observing that semiconductor manufacturing has become an important part of India's initiatives or what government of India is actually planning. So first of all, you should know what is semiconductor. Then we'll understand that Singapore is helping us. So what is a semiconductor? The word semiconductor. So you should know what is a conductor first. So if you take an iron rod, let's say this is an iron rod or let's say a copper rod. And if I put it in such a way that I want to pass electricity from this side to this side. Okay, so if I connect a wire over here and if I check after switching on, I will observe that from copper rod, the electricity will flow from one side to the other side. This will happen because copper is a conductor. Anything from which electricity and heat can pass, we call it as conductor, right? But there are some items or some things which are not conductors and we call them insulators. So if I take something like a plastic rod, let's say this pen which is made up of plastic. Now even if I try to pass electricity from this side to this side, it will not happen. Such things are called as insulators. So on a spectrum, you can imagine on one side we have conductors and on the other side we have insulators, right? But if you see this thing, there are some items which are there in between, which act as conductor sometimes and which act as insulator sometimes. That means you can decide that if you have this item and if you want that it should act like a conductor, that means electricity should pass on, it will happen. And if you want, you can stop it, you can make it just like insulator. Such things are called as semiconductors. So in simple words, semiconductor is a material that has conductivity between that of conductor and insulator, and you can control the flow of that electricity. And that's the reason we say semiconductor is one of the most important things for us. So if you look at electronics and even telecommunications, there we make use of such semiconductors a lot. Even if you are using a mobile phone, a computer, there must be some semiconductor being used in those devices. So you take it electronics, telecom, automotive, for example, you're making electric vehicles, there you need semiconductors. In the healthcare part, for example, you're making some devices like medical imaging devices, you're making solar panels. Everywhere you need semiconductors, without which you cannot make such devices. Now the problem lies in one thing, that in India, we do not manufacture such semiconductors much. 90% of our semiconductors we actually import from other countries. So who are the great manufacturers of semiconductors? Well, the name of Taiwan, South Korea, USA is at top. Specifically, I would say Taiwan is one of the best players when it comes to semiconductor manufacturing. But right now, we are observing the changing geopolitics. We are very much concerned that if the supply of semiconductors is suddenly stopped because of anything, let's say a war starts, let's say China attacks Taiwan, or let's say India and China is at war, anything might happen. And disruption of supply of semiconductor, that means all these industries where we are using this semiconductor, that will become highly vulnerable. So we are very much concerned about it. So government has already launched many initiatives. For example, we are giving this production linked incentive. So any company who will increase the production or come up with maximum production of semiconductors, government is going to give them some incentives. Similarly, design linked incentives are there. See, semiconductor chips are made, which is very tough. Designing that chip is a difficult task altogether. For that also government gives some incentives. There is national policy on electronics brought in 2019, under which government says we are going to make India hub of semiconductor manufacturing. So they are planning, and R&D part, skill development, everything is being done by government. And right now the news item is Singapore is helping India. Singapore is helping India in semiconductor industry. So somewhere we are planning that together we can make semiconductor manufacturing facilities. So an ecosystem can be built through collaboration. And right now, because with Singapore we have completed 60 years of diplomatic ties. So with this we can see that the cooperation and collaboration can move forward in a good direction. Okay. So this is all about semiconductor industry. Now, the third article. Why is India's warming slower? Now, this is a very interesting article. So, we all know that global warming is going on. The temperature is rising. If you see the news, you will see that 2024 is termed as the warmest year for India as well as the entire world. And right now, if we go through the data, most importantly the global data, if you see the temperature that is increasing, and if you compare it with the temperature which was there before the large scale industrialization. Why I am talking about industrialization? Because this problem of climate change, global warming, we are observing only after large scale industrialization. Because before the industrialization, we did not have any such problem. With the industrialization, we brought so many big factories, big industries. We started large scale production, for which we started consuming large scale fossil fuels, and we started emitting greenhouse gases, because of which such phenomena are taking place. So before that large scale industrialization, things were very, very normal. Now, if we compare data, let's say if we take the pre-industrial level data, that is at the time of 1850 to 1900, if we take this as the baseline and compare today's temperature with the temperature of 1850 to 1900, because this is the time when we say things were normal. After that, industrialization at large scale happened. So if you compare that, the global temperature has increased more than 1.5 degrees Celsius already. This is the data at the global level. But there is another data specifically related to India, and that data says that if we compare India's temperature rise, it is somewhere around 1.2 degrees Celsius. So this is the question, why India is warming slower? We are 1.2 degrees Celsius, entire world is at 1.5 degrees Celsius. So are we doing something good? Well, the article says we are not doing anything good as such, rather we are comparing wrong data. We compared the world data with 1850 to 1900 baseline. We took data of this year. But in case of India, we have data from 1900 to 1910. So we are comparing wrong data. We do not have data related to temperature in India in this time period, 1850 to 1900. IMD does not have that specific data. So this is concerning. Second thing, whatever data we have, this 1.2 degrees Celsius rise of temperature, we have taken this temperature rise only of the land part of India. See, when we talk about India, it doesn't only include the land, it also includes many other things, the ocean part, the rivers, and all those parts where we can say it's not only land, but we have data only related to land. But the global data, when we talked about, it includes land as well as oceanic data. So the point is, this comparison is completely wrong. The most important thing is, why do we see that the warming part is relatively slower in case of India or any tropical country like India? So one of the reason is that if you compare the polar region with that of equatorial region, you have to understand one important part, that warming becomes very fast in polar region because of its identity as polar one. So if you look at the polar region, which is having snow belt or what we call as freezing temperature, but if because of global warming the temperature is rising, the snow over there starts melting. Now as soon as snow starts melting, it will further lead to a new phenomena wherein warming will take place in higher quantity. For example, you have snow cover. Now because of snow cover, because of that albedo effect, sunlight will come and sunlight will be reflected back. But because of global warming, this snow cover will be removed. Let's say only this much snow cover is there. So now sunlight will get inside. This will lead to further warming, and because of which further snow will be melting. So that means we are just saying this thing, that in the polar regions, this warming will be much faster. Then there is role of aerosols also. Because of aerosols, we see that this reflection of sunlight that takes place. So in if you take the part of equatorial region, let's say, so there will be aerosols, in the atmosphere. So that will also further lead to further cooling of this entire region. And this part we have already taken, that ocean related data we have not taken. So overall the article is trying to say that somewhere we are comparing wrong information. Overall it's not like India is warming slower as such. The entire world is facing global warming. Now the next article is related to iron deficiency. Now why iron deficiency is in news? Because we were observing the disease called anemia, and earlier people or doctors used to think that the major cause of anemia is iron deficiency. Could you please on the AC? AC. Yeah. So we're talking about iron deficiency. Why? Because anemia is a disease, and doctors used to feel that this is the reason why we face anemia. But now studies are claiming that this is not the only reason. There are multiple reasons because of which anemia might be taking place in India specifically. So we'll understand all those reasons. First, what do we mean by anemia? What is it exactly? So in our body, there are red blood cells, or what we call it as hemoglobin. Whenever in your body you see that these red blood cells have become less in quantity, or hemoglobin is less in quantity in your body, then what will happen to you is called as anemia. So what exactly happens when this hemoglobin is reduced? The task of hemoglobin is to supply oxygen to your tissues and different organs. If this hemoglobin is less in quantity, it will not supply much oxygen to your organs. And when supply of oxygen is not there, what will happen? You will start feeling fatigue. You will start feeling like you are very weak, shortness of breath. All these things will happen. And such a condition is very common in India as well as entire world. I'll show you the data. National Family Health Survey, NFHS 5. It says 60% of the women aged 15 to 49 years and 62% of the girls in 15 to 19 years, they are facing this problem of anemia in India. So you can understand, more than half of the women population, it seems, in this age category, they are facing this problem. That means it's a very serious issue. And at the world stage, World Health Organization data says 24% of the global population suffers from anemia. So you can understand the seriousness. Now we said traditionally or conventionally we used to think that anemia is caused because we lack iron, because we used to think that from iron we get the hemoglobin. So if you have iron deficiency you get this problem. But now studies are claiming that there could be different reasons. For example, if your body is having deficiency of vitamin B12 and folate, in that case also you can go ahead, you can get this disease of anemia. Also some people might be having some genetic disorders. For example, there is this genetic disease sickle cell anemia or thalassemia. In that case also in your body you can get this anemia generated. So genetic disease means anything which is part of your gene and because of that you have got that disorder. So let's say in your gene, the genes which you got from your parents or grandparents or anything which has come to you by generations, and through that genes you have got a particular disease. So through that also it may happen. If someone is having a chronic disease is a disease which continues for a very long time. Let's say even till you die that disease will continue with you, just like diabetes. So if you have some chronic diseases, let's say like kidney disease or cancer, in that case also your red blood cells will be affected, their production might be affected, because of which this will happen. And also the study has claimed that there can be some environmental factors. For example, air pollution can be one of the reasons behind anemia. Then poor sanitation and infections, all these could also lead to anemia. So this study is actually giving us some new insights why anemia has become a big problem for us, because there are different reasons. Okay, now you should have a brief idea about all the government initiatives related to anemia, how government is actually tackling it. For example, we have National Iron Plus Initiative, we have Poshan Abhiyan, Biofortification Program, and there are many public health campaigns which are run by state as well as central government. So you should have a brief idea about all of these things. Okay, now moving ahead. Impact of rupee weakening. Now this is an interesting article. We are saying that rupee is weakening, rather dollar is becoming strong and rupee is becoming weak. Now first of all, is it a good thing for us or a bad thing for us? You should have a understanding of it. When we say dollar is becoming strong and rupee is becoming weak, what do I exactly mean by that? So let's say right now $1 is equal to 80 rupees, just for the sake of example we are saying. So if let's say today or let's say tomorrow suddenly $1 becomes equivalent to 100 rupees. So we are saying the dollar has become strong and rupee has become weak. So earlier, let's say if you're buying something in India, if you're buying something, let's say I'm buying mangoes. Let's say I'm buying 1 kg of mangoes, and to buy 1 kg of mango, I used to make use of $1 because the mangoes cost was somewhere around 80 rupees. So if I give $1, I could get that. Now, because the rupee has become weakened, so using $1, I will get 1 kg of mango as well as some extra mangoes, right? This is what you can understand through this weakening. Now basically if this thing is happening, how does it exactly impact our economy? You should know this. So there will be some positive impacts, there will be some negative impacts. What positive impact we will face? One good thing is our exports will be boosted. How? Let's say we are selling something to USA. Let's say again mangoes we are selling to USA. So earlier when we were selling, at that point of time, for some amount of mangoes or any other product, whatever amount we were getting in as part of the payment, whatever amount we were getting as part of payment, and the price at which we were selling, now that will become bit different. So if mango was 80 rupees per kg earlier, it will remain 80 per kg, but now because of this weakening of rupee, the person in the international market who is buying this, he will find that the mangoes are very much cheap from India, because they are paying in dollars. For them, $1 earlier was 80 rupees, now $1 is 100 rupees. So they are getting extra mangoes. So they will find that Indian products are really cheap, they are really good. So they will buy our products. So our export will increase. So which is good thing? Yes, it is a good thing. Then our remittances will also increase. So let's say there are some Indians who are working in USA, NRI. So they will send some amount of money to India and they send it in dollars. So earlier they used to send, let's say, $10. Today also they are sending $10, but the amount will differ now. Earlier it was 80 rupees. Now it will become 100 rupees. So it's a good thing, and it will attract some foreign investment in India. So there are some equities or real estate stuffs in India. So foreign investors might think that they have to pay relatively less amount to buy these things, and because of which there will be more investment. Now there will be some negative impacts also. What kind of negative impacts? Well, first we said that our exports will benefit. But if we talk about our imports, if India is buying something from other countries, there we have to pay dollars, and because dollar has become stronger, that is not a good news for us. So here we will say that we have to pay more price. So it is not good for Indians who are buying from other countries. Then it is not good for the businesses in India who are buying some raw products or anything from other countries. So what will happen if I have a company in India and I buy something from, let's say, Sri Lanka or America, then I make a product and then I sell it. But because when I'm importing, I have to pay extra money. So what I'll do is, I will ensure that the price of my final product will also be higher so that I can make profit. So overall, my product's cost will become very high. And this is not a good thing. So overall, we say this will lead to inflation in our domestic market. Then there is negative impact on our debt. So let's say Indian government has taken any debt from foreign country, or let's say World Bank or anywhere. They have to pay it back, and that has to take place in dollars. Now here, because dollar has become stronger, they have to pay extra amount, which makes or which creates additional burden on the government. And when such things happen continuously, when your rupee weakens multiple times, such things keep on happening, that creates some volatility in the entire financial market, which is not good because investors do not like this volatility. So overall, these are the positive and negative impacts we see whenever rupee is weakening. Okay. Now the next news item is related to Ladakh. The news item is central government and the leaders of Ladakh. They are right now negotiating, or they are discussing about a new land policy in Ladakh. So they are talking about specifically land. So what's the exact issue? Let's understand. Now in Ladakh, you see, Ladakh was earlier part of Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir was a state. But when Article 370 was abrogated in the year 2019, after that, Ladakh became a separate union territory. And when you are a union territory, that means entire control will be there with the central government. Now, there is some land in Ladakh which is called as Notter land. Now, what is this Notter land? It's a land which is owned by the government. Ownership is with government. But that land is used by the people of Ladakh. Let's say some people are cultivating over there, or they are doing some other activities. But the ownership does not lie with any private person. It lies with the government. But now government has changed. Earlier it was state government of Jammu and Kashmir. Now it is the central government because it is union territory. So right now what is happening is the people of Ladakh, the local people of Ladakh, they are very much concerned. The concern is already we have a we do not have much land over here and our population is very vulnerable. We want that our population should have this land with us. The ownership should lie with Ladakhi population and it should not be given to outsiders. So the negotiations or discussions are going on providing this particular land to Ladakhi population or Ladakhi people. Clear? Now this term, Notter land, this comes from the rule of the Raja of Jammu and Kashmir. So in 1932, he brought a rule. The Raja is Hari Singh. He brought this rule wherein the land will belong to the government. That is, that land will belong to the king Hari Singh. And that will be used by people of Ladakh or let's say at that time Jammu and Kashmir. So this is continuing till now. Now, it's not like they are only demanding a new land policy. There are many other demands from Ladakh side towards central government. For example, they are saying 95% of the government jobs in Ladakh, they should be reserved for Ladakhi population and only 5% should be given to the outsiders. Then when you talk about the domicile, to become the domicile of Ladakh, you should at least stay for 20 years in Ladakh. Right now the rule is 15 years, but they are saying make it 20 years. And even if you become domicile of Ladakh, you will not have any right to purchase any land or any property in Ladakh. Such strong recommendations are given by the Ladakhi leaders because they want to conserve and protect their land from the outsiders. Now there are some other demands too. One of the demand is Ladakh should be included in the 6th schedule of the constitution. Now 6th schedule is very interesting. So if you look at the 6th schedule, there are only 4 states which are part of it. Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. If any state is added in the 6th schedule, that the people of that state or the leaders of that state will get additional powers. So for example, in that state, we will create additional powers. For example, at the national level, we have parliament. At the state level, we have state legislature. Similarly, parallelly, we have Supreme Court. Then here we have High Court. At local level also, we have governance mechanism in the form of Panchayati Raj and municipality. But here a new parallel system will be established which will be very, very powerful. For example, autonomous district councils will be created. At the district level, a new executive body will be created who will take decisions. They are going to go ahead with self-governance. So they'll be very powerful. There will be legislative power given to them. They can make their own laws. They can execute their own laws. They will have their own judiciary or their own courts at the local level and they will have power to tax. So to some extent devolution of power will take place over here if you are added in the 6th schedule. Now such demands come because people want to conserve their identity and culture and for that they demand to be added in 6th schedule. So let's see what happens whether the government accepts this demand or not. Apart from that, they are also demanding they should be given statehood. Just like Jammu and Kashmir, that we are saying that Jammu and Kashmir is going to become a state in future. Similarly, they are saying we should also be made a state and we should also have our own legislative assembly. Also, some of the local languages should be recognized. This is the demand from Ladakhi people. So Urdu, Bhoti or Purgi, these are the languages which are spoken in Ladakh. So they are demanding make it official language. So you should have a brief idea of what kind of demands are being made, what is exactly happening in Ladakh. Now the next topic. This one is related to data localization and it's a very important topic. See, recently IT ministry and some of the tech companies, they are having some consultation, some negotiation. So this consultation is related to draft digital personal data protection rules 2025. Now these are rules Rules come up when already there is an act. So Parliament will pass one act. After that, executive will make some additional rules, detailed rules to implement that particular act. So these are the rules. So there must be some act. So act is there. The name of that act is Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. Okay. Now this act is important because in this act we are trying to protect the data. We want to give right to the people to protect their own data. And here larger companies or data fiduciaries like, let's say, Meta, or big companies like Google, such companies are not happy with the provisions that are being made in this act or the rules being made. Now right now, if you simply talk about this act, it talks about right to data protection, data processing and consent. That means if your data is being used, your consent should be taken. That is very important. There is a regulatory body, Data Protection Board of India. This body has to take care of any kind of grievance. Let's say as a customer you have grievance that your data is being misused, you haven't given any consent to process your data. So for that you have this particular body, and there will be heavy fine and heavy penalties in case you violate this laws. But apart from all these provisions, there is one provision which is very much concerning for these large corporates, and that is data localization. Now what this law particularly says is that there is some data which is very sensitive. They are talking about specifically personal data. So let's say my own personal information. That personal information could be anything: my name, my identity, my bank account details, all this will be part of it. Now out of that, whatever data which is considered as very much sensitive data by the government is saying you can't store that data in America or any other country. You have to store that data over here in India, because we are concerned that it will be very much difficult for us to ensure security of our country or security of the data. So for that they are saying save the data at local level, that is in our country. This is the concept of data localization. Now obviously think it from the perspective of Meta or let's say Google. If you ask them, you have to store your data over here, some sensitive data, not entire data they are talking about. They are talking about only the most sensitive data. So it will be a costly proposal for them. They have to build data centers in India. They have to change all the mechanisms through which their data is processed. So they don't like it, obviously. Now there is one more provision which is related to parental consent for minors. So if there is a child below the age of 18 years, government wants that not everything should be accessible to such a child. Rather there should be a parental control. So these large companies, when they are providing any service, any information, they have to ensure that you check, you verify the age of that person. And that is very important. Now again, these companies are saying, how can we check it? There's a possibility the child may lie, they may click on anything, they may lie that their age is higher, or there will be some challenges. For example, it is possible that the parents are not that literate, they are not tech savvy. So how could we actually implement it in letter and spirit? This is being questioned right now. And apart from that, cross-border data transfer which takes place. Cross-border means from our country to another country. That data transfer, many countries or such companies will say that data should flow freely. But here there will be challenges. So if we talk about Europe, even Europe has some laws. For example, their law is GDPR, right? They also restrict the complete data transfer to some extent. But their laws are not that extremely strong. But if you compare it with Indian laws are very strong. So they are saying at least make it just like GDPR, they'll be happy with it. So these are the concerns. These are the concerns, and that's why such consultations are taking place. We'll see the results of it because it's a news in transition. When we get to know what the consultation eventually leads to, we'll come up with another session and another video on this. Now, the next article related to HPV vaccine, and we are saying it is not made part of national immunization program. Now first of all, what are we talking about? in this particular article. First of all, there is an issue or a disorder called cervical cancer. In India and in the entire world, we see many cases of cervical cancer. So, if we look at the cases in India, 99% of cervical cancer cases in India, they are caused by HPV. What is HPV? It's a virus, human papilloma virus. We are seeing 99% cases are due to HPV. Now, to deal with this HPV, we already have a vaccine. We already have. But we have not added that vaccine in our national immunization program. If we add it, that would be much better because maximum people will benefit from it. Already we have vaccine, we can use it, and all these 99% of the cases, all those could be prevented to a good extent. This is what the article is trying to say. Now briefly we'll understand when we talk about cervical cancer. This cancer occurs at cervix. Cervix is the lower part of the uterus of a woman. And this is the most common, this cervix which is affected. It is affected and because of which this cancer takes place. So this is the major cause or major problem. Or in case of cancer, whenever we talk about cancer, there are different types of cancers. Cervical cancer is one of them, and we are saying that cervical cancer is one of the major or most important reason behind the cancer cases in India. So right now, if we talk about this cancer, it is caused most of the time by human papilloma virus. Now this is a virus just like COVID virus, but this is not transmitted through air or water. Rather, it is transmitted through sexual or physical activities. So, if a person is very much sexually active, in that case, there is a possibility that this HPV virus may get spreaded from one person to another. Okay, you must know this sexual transmission angle. You should remember this part. Now, just like any other cancer, we have some treatments available to deal with cervical cancer also. For example, surgery, radiation therapy, chemotherapy. But these treatments are not that easy. It's better if you can find out that there can be a cervical cancer with you. If you can take the vaccine, that's a better choice always. So, we have this HPV virus. Now, this is not a singular virus. It's a virus which is group of total 200 related viruses. So it's an entire group, and due to any of the virus which is part of this group, you may get that particular disease. Now we said we already have a vaccine for it. We call it simply HPV vaccine, and we want to say to the government that you should make it as part of national immunization program. Now what is this program? Well, government, specifically Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, in the year 1978, they brought this program, National Immunization Program, and this is part of Universal Immunization Program of government. Government wants to ensure that if we have some vaccines already available, we can use those vaccines and provide it to the people so that we can prevent many diseases. For example, we have a bunch of list of diseases which can be easily prevented by making use of those vaccines. For example, we have polio, diphtheria, measles, tuberculosis, hepatitis B, rotavirus, pneumococcal disease, and human papilloma virus. So all these things can be prevented very easily by providing vaccines. We all know about polio at least, if not others. So government is already implementing such a program, right? National Immunization Program. So it would be good if you could add HPV as part of this program. Okay. Now, the next article. Now this article is a bit factual in nature. Okay, so we are saying 28 spotted deer dot every square kilometer of Nagarahole Tiger Reserve in Karnataka. So it's a good news that we are observing that the number or the population of this spotted deer is increasing in the Nagarahole Tiger Reserve, which is there in Karnataka. Why I'm saying it's a good news? Because already this tiger reserve is already having so many tigers over here. How many tigers? Well, the census of 2023 says 142 tigers are present in Nagarahole Tiger Reserve, and it makes it third highest tiger population in India. Now look at this thing. If there is tiger population, this tiger requires something to eat. So they are dependent on the spotted deer or any such animal which they are going to eat. So if this population is increasing, it is good for the health of these tigers too. Okay. Now as part of relevance for the examination, you should have a good idea about this Nagarhole Tiger Reserve specifically. Okay, so I'll give you a homework. I would say you have to locate this Nagarhole Tiger Reserve and in the Karnataka map, because there are many other national parks, tiger reserves which are there in Karnataka. So let's say here we have Bandipur, we have other wildlife sanctuaries like Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, although part of Kerala. So just locate it where it is exactly located. Okay, that's your homework. Now, if we see historically, in the year 1955, it was a wildlife sanctuary. In the year 1988, it became a national park. And in the year 1999, it became 37 Tiger Reserve under the Project Tiger. So whenever you get such status, your protection is increased. Government will take multiple actions to protect the species over here. Now, I hope this location part you will do it. Okay, I don't need to tell this part that it is part of Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, and you have to, while locating, just check, is it sharing any border with this Bandipur Tiger Reserve or not. Okay. Now you will see there are some rivers also over here. For example, there is Nagarhole River, which is a tributary of Kabini River, and there is this Lakshman Tirth River and Moyar River, which are located in this region. Now, this factual part is important for examination. You should at least read it once. You should have a brief idea about the ecological significance of this area or this tiger reserve. So, if you look at this forest specifically, moist deciduous forest, so it will have trees like teak, rosewood and other hardwood species. If you look at the faunas, there will be carnivorous animals, herbivores, primates, there will be other animals like Asian elephants, mouse deer, etc. And please, importantly, this area is very much known for being a bird area, a very important bird area. So many bird species will be here. Okay. Now, specifically about this spotted deer, or in short we call it as cheetal. Its scientific name is Axis axis, and we will find it in the tropical dry forest, deciduous forest and grasslands. So this species is not just found in India, it is found in Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. So overall, Indian subcontinent is full of spotted deer, and its IUCN status is least concern. Their lifespan is somewhere around 20 to 30 years. They are herbivores and they live in herds. These are the facts which you should be aware of. Okay. And at last, the final article is related to Swamitva scheme. So, before you understand the news, what is this Swamitva scheme? It is related to mapping the land parcels in rural part of India. See, let's say there is a farmer who owns a land and he wants to get some loan from the bank, but he doesn't have much documents with him which show that this land belongs to him. Or let's say it is not that computerized, he doesn't have any digital record of his land. In that case, he will find it difficult to get that loan. Or even if government is implementing any policy, if government wants to know who owns which land, so for that they need data. So what government is doing under this Swamitva scheme, they are mapping the entire rural part of India, and they are in that mapping part, they are surveying, they are checking who owns which part of the land. So this is a long process, and to do this they are making use of technology. Specifically, they are making use of drones. So using drones, because drone can easily map the things, that will be much easier. And using the drones, they are doing the entire survey of lands in India. Already the news is drone survey of land in over 3 lakh villages has been already completed. It's a very big news, we can say. And the plan is to cover each and every household. So if you look at the objective, provide record of rights to households in rural inhabited area. So entire records, the land records, they are being provided very clearly. And this is being done by Ministry of Panchayati Raj, and you should remember this ministry very specifically. The plan is to go ahead with a nationwide mapping covering 3.17 lakh villages. Already how much is completed? We said 3 lakh is already completed. So almost, we can say we have almost completed the target of this Swamitva scheme. And here the benefit will be, we are going to reduce land disputes. If there are land disputes between 2 people, 3 people, or anyone, now we will have land records, so that dispute can be solved very easily. And people who want loan or something, they can easily get that because they have land records available, and everything will be in digital form now. So things will become very much easy. Okay, so please remember this Swamitva scheme. So these are the 10 most important, most relevant articles from the current affairs for this entire week. We'll meet in the next session with new video. Thank you so much.